Hello there and welcome to Loose Lips. This is the current affairs show for CTV, especially for women. And our special guests tonight include Bridget Williams. Welcome back, Bridget. She is the president of the Student Volunteer Army. How busy have you been since we last saw you?
Pretty busy, yeah, I had exams. Yep, so pretty busy. But no, it's all good, they're all over and now semester 2 is on its way.
Do you get a wee bit of a break in between or not?
No, because I worked. But I wanted to work because I needed money, so it's all good.
It's that eternal struggle of the student, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
And also joining us on our panel tonight is CTV's roving reporter, Emma Cropper. So welcome to the studio, Emma. It's not very often you sit in a studio, is it?
No, it's not. I'm normally out in the field, so it's exciting to be here under the lights.
Well, it's a bit warmer.
Oh, much warmer than being out in the winter cold.
Yeah, and people do get you a glass of wine and water and that kind of stuff, you know, so there are perks to being in a studio.
Yeah, I'm very much enjoying this side of it so far.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for joining us. And a big welcome back to Jax Hamilton, of course. Hi, Jax. How's it going?
Hello. I'm a bit of an old veteran, aren't I, really?
Well, you are now, yeah. You and I both.
I don't mind.
Yeah, all good. Been good?
Yeah, good. I've been up and down the country, cooking with the mongrel mob on the marae, you know, handing out knives, getting onions chopped up. Beautiful.
Oh, I love it. You certainly live life to the max, Jax.
So glamorous.
Oh, it is very glamorous. Those 5 a.m. starts to catch the planes are not quite so glamorous.
No, they're not. No, they're not at all. And those little planes that look like, they feel like they're made out of Lego.
Yeah.
Which is pretty scary, but, you know.
Tin cans, yeah, good fun. Look, on tonight's programme, we've very specially got 2 Gen X's and 2 Gen Ys. We thought we'd have a good discussion about generations. Now, generation can be defined in lots of different ways, and we've sort of been discussing about what's the best way to define it. The Generation Y team are often defining things with 140 characters or less, which funnily enough is exactly what you need to tweet. The result also for Gen Y is that they have quite a short attention span apparently, but I'm sure that we'll be debating that very shortly. And a lot of people think that they can't concentrate for more than about 5 minutes. And in fact, there was a bit of a study done that for every 5 minutes of work done by a Gen Y, there are 30 minutes spent on Facebook.
What?
Yeah, I know, we'll discuss that very shortly. On the flip side though, Gen Y is by far the most agile, responsive and informed generation that we've had to date, thanks very much to the internet, smartphones and all those other gadgets. Gen Y workers are known as being career-minded. They have a natural ability to connect and communicate, as well as to respond incredibly quickly with information. Again, they are called, though, the new me generation, due to being perceived by some as narcissistic, fame-obsessed and self-interested. Gen Y isn't accepting of the way that things have always been done. They're always keen to change and challenge the establishment with new ideas. So there's a whole bunch of ideas there about what Gen Y actually is. What do you guys think?
I'm sorry, I forgot the question. What were we talking about?
Bridget, you are classic.
Gen Y, oh my gosh.
It was a joke. Gosh.
But how often do people say to you, oh look, that's so Gen Y? Do you get sick of being classified as Gen Y?
No, I think, I mean, well, I don't know, because I hang out with Generation Y people, so it's not like we sort of, you know, like, disregard our own generation. Yeah. But I have heard, you know, Gen Y being tossed around, but never really in a negative sense.
That's interesting. So what do you think about the narcissistic, fame-obsessed?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
You do?
Yeah.
People post on like Instagram, everything, just little selfies of themselves, but I wouldn't actually do it. None of my friends do it, but there are people out there who do it.
Oh yeah. Well, I have to admit I have taken the odd selfie myself, and I'm a Gen Xer. So, you know, maybe is this just a natural extension of the technology rather than generation?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Actually, the first time someone asked me to take a selfie, I thought they said Southie, and I thought they were going down south. I had no idea what they were saying.
That would have been quite a difference.
What do you mean? What do you mean? So then I texted my son, because this is, you know, I texted my son and said, someone's asked me for a selfie, and then 5 minutes later I got the ha 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 selfie, mum. So, yeah, and that wasn't that long ago, unfortunately.
Do you think Gen Ys are perhaps less patient than what Gen Xers are?
For sure, because everything's instant. Everything is instant. If I ask Tom something he doesn't know, he would just Google it. He just, and then he knows. So there's none of that learning. You know, when with your parents, with my generation, there was an age where they would impart information. You know, I'd say to my mum, well, Mum, where does this come from? Or how do I do that? And she would sit down and she would tell me. Tom never comes to me because he just gets it from his Uncle Google.
See, that's independence, though.
Ah, right.
Hello, that was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel as though that the Generation Y, we've sort of we're in a society where we think we can do anything. Like everything is at just at our fingertips. Like we're sort of surrounded by entrepreneurs, and so we think that success. If I'm going to get my big break, or an idea will come, and I'll bet I'll make heaps of money. So there's a little bit of a fantasy to it. So maybe that does sort of, like we have these high expectations, and when we don't reach them, it is a bit disappointing. But I still feel as though that we're fun and we're excited and we're just ready to give everything a go. I think that's sort of,
Well, I think that's something that has been said, is that you guys are not prepared to just accept it because it's always been done that way. You go out there and try new things and break boundaries.
But I find that even as a journalist, our news needs to be, people want to know the news instantly, and it needs to be at their fingertips on apps and everything. So that's, my job's driven by the internet and being online and out there. So my job wouldn't function without being on Twitter and everything like that.
Well, let's face it, it's not going away either. Yeah. So is this a case of us Gen Xers actually need to just catch up, and we do need to be on top of these things? I mean, I've got friends who go, oh no, I'm not going to be on Facebook, I'm not going to do that. But actually, if we're not going to be in the same world as our children.
You do miss out on a lot if you don't, absolutely. But I think there's a difference as well between theory and practice. Like my son thinks he can do lots of things because he's read it, because he's seen it, because he's been, he's done it in I don't know, like a video game, but it's very different to going out and driving. Do you know what I mean? If you're driving on some game and he thinks he's changing gears in his bedroom next to his pillow, it's very different to going out on the street and being real. Do you know what I mean? There's a real big difference between that, and I think that is being lost. That whole experience part of it is being lost, and that worries me a lot.
Mind you, I don't know that I'd want to go back to the days when I turned 15, sat one test and got handed a full driver's licence. There you go, bye-bye. Which is what it was. It was all a bit scary really back then. So, but it was what everybody did.
I think also, like, generation, it sounds more like generalisation, doesn't it?
Well, I think you might be very good. Are we just stereotyping here, trying to put people in boxes?
I don't know. I just feel as though that it comes down to parenthood as well, and how how you look after your child and how they're raised too. That also comes down to it. You can't just put them in this this box because they were born a certain year. Yeah.
Well, actually, about the certain years, I think that, and there'll be a lot of people that are sort of watching and going, well, okay, well, what is actually Gen Y? From what I've understood, it kind of goes from like baby boomer to Gen X to then Gen Y. So that's kind of the progression that we're talking. And your baby boomers end about sort of mid-60s, and then the Gen X's end around late 80s. Is that kind of your perception as well?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, okay. Hey, look, stay with us, because coming up after the break, we're going to talk more about Gen Y and some of the troubles that they face that us Gen X's never even had to consider. See you soon. Welcome back. Earlier generations made lots of mistakes away from the glare of social media. Generation Y are not so fortunate. So today we are talking about Generation Y and some of the differences between them, Generation X and the baby boomers as well. Today, Gen Y lives their lives online. They've been building their own digital online footprint from the minute they ventured into teenhood, which can bring them shame if they ever put a foot wrong. There's been quite a lot about this and quite a lot of high-profile stories in the media lately where young women have been shamed on the internet. For example, there was the Magaluf girl incident over in the UK, and of course our roast busters right here.
We take what we do seriously as well.
Yeah. Some of you guys think it's a joke and stuff, like, bro, how about you try to get the amount of girls we do? It's serious, this is a job. We don't do this shit for pleasure. A true roast is when you know you're intentionally going there to roast. Like, when you know what you're doing, you're like, we're going to roast this,
We
it makes
time out of our daily lives to find a girl to roast.
We don't choose the roast chooses us.
We have girls hitting us up asking to hang out with us.
It's a bit of a concern. This and some of the other high media cases all have in common the fact that a lot of the men seem to be immune from the backlash and that frenzy of attention. They seem to get away from the judgment side of it, which it seems to be so different for girls who are actually being publicly shamed, called sluts and branded as promiscuous. Those are actually quite difficult words to say, but it is exactly what's happening on the internet. It's having a really profound impact on women's self-worth and morality. And what's surprising is that this public shaming is still happening today, and in our own world. And it's a very tragic problem for women around the world. What do you guys think about this? What do you think, Emma? Do you feel that women are being shamed more than the men in these kinds of situations?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think with the Roastbusters situation, they were really hated, but from most of New Zealand and all the media, which is quite unusual because normally guys are a bit like, oh, yeah, good on you type of thing. But yeah, as women, I think definitely we get the hard end of the stick on that one.
Well, one of the things that I also think of is that Tuila Blakely incident in Auckland, and you know what, I can't even remember the guy's name, but you know, she really did get slammed for the sex tape that was shot in the car, and there's been a few articles on her in the media too, and he seemed to be hailed as a wee bit of a hero.
Yeah, she apologised and she lost a job and all that stuff, but he just went on and he was the hero, which has always been the case, but I think social media has really highlighted the fact that this is, it's so prevalent, and it's like the girls are getting slammed even more so, you know, it's just, I mean, that was just disgusting. You know, for me, I just want to take those boys and just give them a good, get my belt out and give them a bit of a, what their mothers never did. You know, it's disgusting to actually be on, you know, to be filming that.
Yeah. It's just so stupid. It's like they're not even really living their lives. They're just living their lives through the social media. And what's even more disappointing is that social media can be used for such positive things. I mean, like, look at the Student Volunteer Army. That was established through Facebook.
And it would never have been able to have existed as successfully as it did if you didn't have those social media networks. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's just small minds wanting to use it in, you know, small, pathetic ways, and that's what they're doing, which is a real shame. But I think, you know, it takes groups like this and making sure that they, you know, people know that it's wrong, because it is.
Do you think that there is more of an impact through social media on young women who make mistakes, who then get shamed with pictures and comments and things like that on social media?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's just, you just always got to be on your guard. That's the real, you know, that's the tragic thing. You just, you know, just make sure that you don't post. I mean, what was the rule? It was something like never put anything on the internet that you don't ever want your boss to see.
Yeah, or your mum to see.
Yeah. That's good rule of thumb. Yeah. A lot of guys don't seem to think like that. It doesn't bother them. They just fire things up from Friday night, and it's, you know, it's not a problem.
Because imagine, like, in 10 years, all these guys that have been Snapchatting and tweeting and 140 characters and sitting in cars. You know, imagine if that was Barack Obama, you know, 20 years ago. He would never be president. It just wouldn't happen, because the shame would carry on. The shame of that girl in Magaluf, that is going to take her, that 20 seconds, however it was, in that club one night, that's going to be with her for the rest of her life. And I don't think that they understand that. I don't think they see that. It's just, it's out there and it's there forever.
Is social media, is it one of those things that really, that socially we need to take care of? I mean, it was something, Bridget, that you mentioned before about, you know, friends, you know, where are the friends looking after? So...
Yeah, I know. I think maybe it's because, I mean, like, technology has just advanced so quickly. Maybe we actually need to just look at it and step back and be like, hold on, where is this taking us? Like, you know, we need to realise the consequences. So maybe it is something that we all need to change as a society to work through together, or just be more educated at schools. Maybe schools need to start telling people at a younger age.
Well, they are starting to.
Yeah, just keep going with that, you know?
Yeah, my son, who's just gone through intermediate, you know, there was quite a lot of discussion about that. And maybe it's you guys who are the, I hate to say it, but the older section of Gen Y have really been a bit of an experiment in how you handle these kinds of things.
Because those high school students at the moment have that Ask FM, their online forum where they can abuse people, and it's anonymous, and that it's just horrific. And I think that's a lot of where online education is coming for them through the schools.
Absolutely. Now, something you just mentioned before, Bridget, was about socially, you know, getting together and changing things. There's been a bit of chat in the media about a certain campervan company and some of the misogynistic slogans that they've been spray painting on their van. Now, this has been around for a few years. I've been offended by it personally more than once. What do we think about these kinds of things being publicly written on a very commercial venture? This is not just someone's student flat van. This is an actual company. What do you think, Jax?
Just, imagine I went out and happened to spray paint my car with something equally as, you know, offensive, I would be slammed immediately. I wouldn't be able to drive down my street, but yet this guy can use it as a advertisement for his business. How can that happen? Really?
What concerns me is actually the bottom line is not just to make the van look pretty or anything else, it's actually to make money. Yeah. So he's making misogynistic, negative,
offensive,
damaging, offensive comments purely to make money for this company. So
who would even want to rent them? I don't even understand who would think that looks great, I'll pay for that.
Well, yeah, I suppose they're kind of targeted, or they say they're targeting 18 to 13-year-old men. That's Gen Y.
Oh my gosh, it is too! What is this?
Would the men in your lives that you know, your brothers, boyfriends, friends, would they hire a van that's got those kinds of slogans?
Oh, but Vanessa, you know, if there's a group of guys and they're going on holiday and they've got $20 to spend on beer and $2 to spend on car, they will absolutely take it out and they will drive around in it happily. Peer pressure is another thing that's going to get them all going and get them in the van. It's dirty camping, isn't it? It's not glamping. You know, I'd be in my Rolls Royce being driven around by my chauffeur to my little tent, but, you know, of course they will. All they're doing is just, you know, just cutting out the women. Should
we actually be allowing this to happen?
No. No.
So how do we actually manage to stop this?
Why don't we just do the reverse and just write horrible things about guys? And
Bridget!
Oh, no, that's... Sorry, thinking about...
Just go there in the dead of night with batteries.
And change all these slogans.
An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. But I don't know, I think... I do kind of feel as though that there needs to be, a petition, the one that's started on Facebook, you know, that's going to definitely, you know, say a lot. But I think there does need to be more. I don't know what it is, but there does need to be, action,
Yeah. Well, perhaps we just need to put a bit more social pressure on that particular camper van thing. You might just find a bit of a link to a petition on the Loose Lips page coming up on Facebook. Perhaps tomorrow morning it'll be there for you. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, we've got more on Gen Y. Welcome back to Loose Lips. We've been discussing how this generation are doing things differently. When I say this, I mean Gen Y, the latest generation, to make changes in our world. We've also been talking about how technology is bringing with it a whole new set of problems that us Gen Xers just never had to face. We don't know whether any of this is going to have a long-term negative impact on women, but what we do know is that the internet is here to stay and women are unlikely to start taking vows of celibacy just to avoid the pitfalls of life in the digital age. I think we need to learn how to use this digital age to the best that we can. However, there is a side to the internet that perhaps is not being used to its best advantage. I don't know, we're going to discuss that shortly. A hookup is what I'm talking about. And a hookup doesn't even have to involve eye contact these days. It's easier to click and type than it is to find a date in a crowded bar. At least that's the way that society seems to be going. Instant messaging and hookups seem to be the new courting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a clip that gives you an idea of how it works.
There once was a beautiful girl who was known to swipe left all day until she found a charming prince who was only a mile away. The prince was none too picky, but this one was out of his league. He'd never seen a maiden so fair, plus he hadn't had sex in a week. And so their courtship did blossom. They planned to meet up that night. She donned her prettiest dress and a pair of control top tights.
Tinderelli, show some cleavage, Tinder.
The ball was full of creepers. They scoped her low and high. She couldn't find her handsome prince 'cause her battery just died. The prince was so distraught. Alas and alack, of all the girls he'd messaged, she was the hottest who wrote back. So he took out her selfie and he searched far and wide, from the girls doing shots to the ones smoking outside. The prince felt defeated and also pretty drunk. But then out of nowhere, he saw his one true love. She snuck out that morning at 4:30 a.m. and they lived happily ever after because they never spoke again.
Well, that, folks, is a hookup. I know I've learned stuff tonight. Look, is a hookup going to mean the death of romance and courtship? What do you think, Emma?
I don't know. That Tinder app, it's like an app designed for a booty call, really. It's just, it's so bad. But
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it's designed for.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people have a bit of fun with it, but some do take it seriously, which is a bit creepy. But
Yeah, got to keep both feet in the real world,
I
do you
don't
think?
know. I don't have it, and I probably just talk to people normally. The normal way is the way to go, I think.
You reckon? What do you think, Bridget?
Well, I don't even have Tinder. I mean, I remember like asking, I was like, what is this? And I'm like, oh my goodness, you mean you like swipe if you don't like them? This is so exciting. But then you realise that actually this is horrible. You're just sort of judging someone at a first glance from a photo. And I think, once again, it comes down to how you were raised. You know, if your parents were sort of old school and encourage you to, you know, like get out there and talk to people and stuff, and, you know, I don't know, go to sports, that sort of thing, you know, keep social, then I don't reckon you're going to, you know, rely on Tinder for romance. That's what I hope.
Well, yeah, I'd like to think so too. I mean, it is entertaining. The funny thing is, though, that you talk to people and everybody seems to know somebody who's used Tinder. Do you know anybody who's used Tinder, Jax?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just single for the first time in 23 years, and the language is all changed when I was courting with a chaperone in the back of the cinema. And so I went to a friend's house. And
See, we're all learning something.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So I went to a friend's house and they were like, you need to get Tinder. And I had no idea what it was. And there was a girl in the corner just doing that and looking for some guy, and I couldn't believe it had been reduced to just this. And the worrying thing about this was this girl had a 3-year-old daughter, and she was quite happy to invite someone into her home who she did not know, you know, via
a hookup.
For a hookup. This stranger into her house, and she had a child. No, it's not something that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going to the supermarket and putting my bananas upside down. That they did in the 80s.
Well done. I think, well, you know, I mean, is it just that the method has changed, you know, because there were still hookups
the whole
in
language,
the 80s,
you know, people
well.
are talking to me about spooning and then perhaps forking, and in my head, I think about a cutlery drawer, but it means something completely different. No, thank you for me. I want the old-fashioned romance, I want the courting, and I want to know somebody before I swipe them to the left.
From looking at it from another perspective, and I'm not saying, like, I don't encourage, you know, what we're talking about, but I think we definitely live in a super fast-paced society now, and it's almost as if we don't have the time to court people, and so it's just, we need an app that you can, like, whip out and just be like, oh, you know, I need to find my life partner.
Narrow them down.
You know, you're trying to narrow,
Within 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but maybe it is. It's just this, like, this pressure that society is putting on us to, you know, live fast, you know, get as much done as fast as you can. So maybe that's where it comes from.
Well, I suppose, you know, that's one of the definitions of Gen Y, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's try and get everything into that 5-minute window. But it does have to flip around at some point. There's the slow food movement, for example, Jax. I mean, that would be, you know, something that you would probably back, is the taking your time to eat and make meals.
Absolutely.
And things like that.
Yeah, and you know, when you go out and eat, you choose from the whole menu, you know.
Yeah.
You don't just pick up one thing and throw the other. You just, you know, you take your time. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be doing this Tindering stuff. It's just, what does Tinder even mean?
Wow, yeah.
Tinderella.
Tinderella. I actually thought that was a very clever cartoon. It was very good. I did see something on the internet the other day that was really interesting to me, that restaurants were complaining about people were complaining about how long it takes to get a meal in a restaurant. And they did this study about back in the 80s and now, and that punters who go along to a restaurant are sitting down and spending so much time on their phone that actually to get through the whole meal process is taking sort of an average of about 20 minutes longer.
Wow.
I thought, wow, you know, because the waiter comes over, it's like, oh no, sorry, hold on, I've got to text somebody or take photos and or I haven't looked at the menu yet, you know. And everything's, that side of it is flipping around, it's taking longer to get through stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
What do you think?
Works out good if the chef's taken a while because they won't notice.
Maybe, exactly. Yeah,
I know. You are right. When you go to a restaurant, it's like, oh, I have to take a photo of my meal because it looks good.
That's right.
Filters, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a bit artificial,
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming along. We've had a great discussion about Gen Y versus, well, not versus Gen X, but some of the differences. You know, I think it's fascinating. So it's been lovely to hear your points of view. Thank you very much, Bridget and Emma, for joining us. And Jax, great to have another Gen Xer on the table with me. I appreciate it.
Old school.
Yeah, check us out on Facebook. You know, all the social media that we're talking about, we are embracing as well. There's a lot of upsides to it too, as Bridget had alluded to earlier. So check us out online, have a wee look, join in the conversation. We'll see you next week. This has been Loose Lips. Good night.